And what's so unusual about muscle is that there's nothing in medicine that we can say that supports our overall survival more than skeletal muscle. It's fascinating. And my goal, Ashley, is how do we shift the conversation from being fat focused to really being muscle centric?
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show.
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show. I'm Dr. Ashley, and today we are so fortunate to have Dr. Gabrielle Lyon as a guest on our show. Dr. Lyon is an accomplished board-certified family physician and a distinguished New York Times bestselling author, lauded for her latest work, Forever Strong, a new science-based strategy for aging well. Her book's exceptional success has also earned her the esteemed titles of Wall Street Journal and US Today bestselling author. At the forefront of modern medicine, Dr. Lyon is leading a revolutionary movement focusing on the body's largest organ, skeletal muscle. Her mission is to promote longevity and combat the pervasive threats of obesity, heart disease, and diabetes by optimizing muscle health. Dr. Lyon's rich background encompasses a dual research and clinical fellowship in geriatrics and nutritional sciences at Washington University, complemented by her undergraduate training in nutritional sciences at the University of Illinois. As an authority in the practical application of protein types and levels for health, performance, aging, and disease prevention, she is highly sought after as an educator. Through her thriving private practice, influential YouTube channel, captivating podcast, and her best-selling book, Dr. Lyon poses a fundamental question. How can we foster strength not only in the weight room, but in our daily lives? With unwavering dedication to cultivating consistent dietary and lifestyle habits, she empowers individuals to prioritize self-care and better support their loved ones, contributing to a world of enhanced strength and well-being. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lyon. I'm so grateful that you're here.
Dr. Ashley, this is so fun. And we were talking off camera. I get to see you in person again coming up soon. So I couldn't be more excited.
I know that you're one of the most busiest women out there. You've got 2 kids.
Little, 3 and 5.
3 and 5, which makes it that more challenging.
Yeah.
A wife, you're a best-selling author, and you seem to be everywhere all at the same time. So on behalf of our viewers and listeners, I'm just so grateful that you're taking some of your limited time to spend with us. So
thank you, Ashley. That was so gracious. Thank you so much. I am very thrilled to be here. So thank you.
Well, I would love for you to start by sharing a little bit about your story and how you came to create muscle-centric medicine.
Well, first off, I would consider a leg up. We all care about mentorship and, the listeners at home thinking about how their path in life has been guided. And I started in nutrition very early on. My godmother is one of the OGs in functional medicine and nutrition. So I became very interested in nutrition, and this is all going to round up to muscle-centric medicine. So before I tell you my backstory, let me tell you what muscle-centric medicine is. Muscle-centric medicine is the focus of skeletal muscle as the organ of longevity. And really, you've heard about lifespan, you've heard about health span. Really, muscle-centric medicine is all in support of muscle span. And that's the length of time you live with healthy and optimal muscle. Where did this come from? Especially when people are thinking about obesity and this, quote, obesity epidemic and crisis. Muscle-centric medicine, again, I had a leg up. I was trained in nutritional sciences. I became very interested in nutrition very early on. By the time I was 17, I had chosen my career path. From there, I went to medical school, did 2 years of residency in psychiatry, which really taught me about the brain. And then I did 3 years in family medicine. I called my mentor. I remember reading this article on the paleo diet, and I was telling him how amazing it was, all this stuff. And meanwhile, you have to understand that my mentor is a world-class protein researcher, one of the best. Much of what we know and what we're going to talk about today is based on his original research. Mm-hmm. That's unusual. That is unusual to have worked underneath someone who actually created ideas for us. And I was doing my fellowship. I did my fellowship in St. Louis at WashU. And I was doing nutritional sciences and geriatrics. And I saw this one patient. I was looking at her cognitive function. So part of this study was looking at body composition and brain volume. And she was a mom of three in her mid 50s, always put herself last, did everything for everybody. And I imaged her brain, and her brain looked like the beginning of an Alzheimer's brain.
Hmm.
She had done everything that everybody told her, which was eat less, move more, and yo-yo dieted, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, the whole thing over time. And I felt really responsible. And I think, you care for patients and you interface with a lot of people. And I think as providers and as people that educate and who just interface with the public, I felt personally responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like we were failing. And I had this flash of insight that we didn't have an obesity problem, that obesity was the wrong tissue to be looking at, and that was really all about skeletal muscle, and that we weren't over fat, but we were really under muscled. And that's where this concept of muscle-centric medicine was born.
So it differs from traditional approaches to health and wellness because it, instead of focusing on fat mass, is focusing on the muscle mass.
Exactly. And it's not just the muscle mass, but it's the muscle quality, its strength, it's all of the things that skeletal muscle is responsible for. So there's the health aspect that's critical, but there's all the things that it does. And that's, the mass and the health and the performance, all of it.
So if this lady had better muscle mass, better muscle quality, then you think the imaging of her brain would have been better as well. They're all
Yeah.
linked together, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And here's why. When you think about what skeletal muscle does, it is the metabolic sink. When you think about blood sugar regulation, triglycerides, all of these things that contribute to syndrome X, hypertension, obesity, again, abnormal lipids, abnormal glucose, these don't originate, these problems, they don't originate in body fat.
Mm-hmm.
They originate at the primary storage site and site of utilization in skeletal muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
And had we protected her muscle over time and made sure that it was healthy, she would not have had metabolic dysregulation. She wouldn't have had obesity. There was a whole host of things that she would have never had. In addition, we know that exercising skeletal muscle releases myokines, which are these little peptide hormones that do all different various things that interface with the brain for neurogenesis, which is regeneration, for mood, a whole host of things. And had we addressed her skeletal muscle mass, then we would have really been able to save her.
So when we address our skeletal muscle mass, then there are probably some pillars that support good muscle mass. I would think diet, exercise, and probably a few other things. If we start by talking about diet, where do we focus?
Dietary protein. That's really the only way to support muscle is through protein. You're not going to support the health of skeletal muscle through carbohydrates. I mean, certainly through glycogen storage, but if you care about the maintenance of all tissues in the body, the primary macronutrient, and frankly, the only macronutrient for the most part, is dietary protein. Yes, you need some essential fatty acids, but the total amount of fatty acids that you need might be 4 grams. Mm-hmm. When you think about dietary protein, the body turns over around 300 grams of protein daily. The average American might eat 100, little less than 100 grams of dietary protein daily. One has to recognize that we have to be able to support that tissue somehow. And so we're always breaking down and rebuilding. And as you can imagine, if you didn't have enough dietary protein, then your ability to maintain and optimize that tissue changes. So the number one pillar is nutrition, not because it's the most important, but it's because it's the one thing that we all do. We all eat. Mm-hmm. And people will say, what do you mean it's not the most important? Think about when you're young. So we both have kids. Our kids could arguably eat whatever they want and still be in amazing health or amazing shape because they're so physically active. The greatest stimulus is actually physical activity. However, 50% of Americans don't exercise, and 75% don't even meet their minimum requirements.
So when it comes to dietary protein, what are your suggested amounts that we consume each day?
Now, I'm going to give this answer in a few ways. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that the current recommendation is the minimum to prevent a deficiency, which is 0.8 grams per kg. That is for and was developed on nitrogen balance studies for young men. Ashley, what's your nitrogen balance?
I don't know.
Exactly. Neither do I. Nitrogen balance, hence, is not a clinical outcome. It's not something that we care about. And in fact, those recommendations haven't changed for the last 40 years. What the data has supported over time is that double the RDA, so that moves us to 0.7 grams per pound of body weight, would be a more optimal range to support body composition. Because at the end of the day, Ashley, what is it that we want? We all want to have a good body composition. We want to have less body fat, and we want to maintain our body composition. So we have to design a diet that does that. And the evidence would support 0.7 grams per pound. And I certainly recommend even higher than that, closer to 1 gram per pound ideal body weight. The reality is, does someone have to go that high? They don't. But if I were to say, in an ideal world, if someone could do anything, that's what I would have them do.
Does it matter if it comes from plant protein versus animal?
I'm going to give you two answers on this. The first answer that I'm going to say is when you're just looking at dietary protein, which is made up of 20 different amino acids, it's not just one thing, then plant protein has lower quality based on the amino acid profile than animals. Animals have the essential amino acids. There's 9 essential amino acids in the appropriate amounts. And is that more beneficial for muscle? The answer is going to surprise you. So the answer is no. If someone were to consume a robust amount of plant protein, maybe 35% more or so, depending on the source, could they stimulate muscle the same way? The answer is actually yes. Mm-hmm. Now, the question then becomes, how do we design in real time a diet that would allow that? People love quinoa as a source of protein. People will say, well, my quinoa has protein. You would need 6 cups of quinoa to equal 1 small chicken breast. Mm-hmm. As we age, I know many of the people listening might be a tad bit older. You could attest that your appetite goes down, right? Our appetites go down as we age. That's been pretty well documented. Therefore, the choice of calories become more important. And that's where nutrient density comes into play. Mm-hmm. A nutrient density would be a lower amount of calories that provides more nutrients. And from my perspective, the most nutrient dense foods are animal source foods. That being said, if someone was resistant to eating a diet that has animal products, could you do it? From a vegetarian perspective, you could. Do I believe that that is optimal? No, because we're just talking about protein. What about iron? What about zinc? What about selenium? What about B12? The list clearly goes on. Mm-hmm. But plants, I'm not against plants in general. They are a great source of fiber and phytonutrients. Is it the optimal way to design a diet? Probably not.
Yeah, and they're usually linked to so many more carbohydrates. And if we're talking about population who might be insulin resistant, have dropped weight and need to keep their carbs slightly lower, maybe not super active, then it's hard to get that adequate protein in there and keep their carbs within the level that their body tolerates, I find. Sometimes it's just easier with animal protein.
It's 100% easier.
What would you say are your top 3 favorite sources of protein?
That is super easy. Lean red meat, certified Piedmontese is my favorite. Mm-hmm. I love that company. I have no financial ties with them. Have you ever had that? Have you ever had certified Piedmontese? Maybe I need to send you a box of that.
Maybe.
It's amazing. And it's lean and it's nutrient dense. These cows are really jacked. It's amazing. That would be number 1. My second source, believe it or not, would be non-fat Greek yogurt. I love a good Greek yogurt. I also love eggs. I mean, the choice is endless.
Those
Yeah.
would be your top three. What about someone who is on a budget? What are your top budget friendly protein sources?
Lean red meat from the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Totally okay. I mean, when I was a college student, I couldn't afford organic, grass fed, all those things. Um, you can still buy conventional red meat and conventional beefs
Mm-hmm.
and chickens. I would start there because at the end of the day, you care more about where your calories are coming from, hence a lean source of dietary protein, than anything else. If
Mm-hmm.
you're on a budget, I would still get lean red meat. I would get chicken, I would get eggs, I would get Greek yogurt, all of that.
Great.
Hey, really quickly, if you're interested in hydrating yourself optimally and want to do it in an efficient and effective way, I created an Electrolyte Plus mix just for that. It's called Dr. Ashley's Electrolyte Plus, creative, I know. And it's crafted with essential electrolytes, vitamins, and minerals for maximum absorption. With patented forms of zinc and vitamin C, it supports immune and adrenal function. Plus, chromium picolinate regulates healthy blood sugar levels while helping to curb those cravings. Say goodbye to headaches and fatigue. Visit drashleywellness.com and use code Ashley10 for 10% off your first purchase or 20% off your first subscription order with free shipping. Plus, enjoy 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, back to the episode.
What would you say are the most common misconceptions about protein intake?
Yeah. It's bad for your bone. It's bad for your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
We're eating too much and or it causes cancer.
Yeah, I would say so. What do you say to those?
They're all not true.
No.
There's multiple meta-analyses that show it's good for kidneys, actually can improve kidney function.
Mm-hmm.
Bone is made from protein. In fact, your husband could probably attest to this, when I was doing my fellowship, one of the things that we saw was those individuals that have a lower protein diet had lower bone
Yeah, that's
density.
right. Mm-hmm. Why do you think the recommended daily allowance for protein is so low, and why hasn't the Food and Nutrition Board changed it?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of policy involved because it has to still fall in line with the WHO. And also, if we are recommending a higher protein diet, how does that impact the rest of the world? It's not necessarily based on health at all. It's a wonderful question. The reason that I don't think that they have changed the recommendation for the last 40 or so years is not because they don't have the evidence. Policy change is exceedingly and painfully slow.
Mm-hmm. What about other aspects regarding our government's nutritional recommendations? Do you think anything else is off besides the protein suggestions? Or do
It's
you
hard
agree
to
with the rest?
say. I mean, that's another great question. Even the carbohydrates is 130 grams per day. You could titrate up or down. Protein is definitely the biggest thing that's off.
Considering societal stereotypes, I'd love for you to explain how you encourage women to embrace strength training and muscle building.
Well, first we have to address the biggest myth, which is you're going to get bulky.
Mm-hmm.
That's never going to happen. The question becomes, what is the resistance to training? And that would be people are afraid of getting bulky.
You think that's the main one?
I do. And I think women are intimidated. I'm curious, Ashley, what do you think?
Man, I would say fear of getting bulky, yet also just not having the confidence to get in there and start. That's what I see from our clients, is that they just don't have the confidence. It can be intimidating going into the gym, seeing all these men in there lifting heavy weights. So I would love for you to provide some strategies on how psychologically people can overcome that.
Think about anything in life that has been meaningful. Anything in life that has been meaningful has never been comfortable. And we think we want things that are comfortable, but in fact we don't. We don't derive the same level of satisfaction when we go for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
When you start something new, what would you tell your children? You're not going to be good at it first, and it's going to feel intimidating or scary, but you still have to do it. There was a time where you didn't brush your teeth, and then You learned that you could and that you should and all these other things. And the same goes for strength training. I will also say it's non-negotiable. It's probably the most important thing that someone should do. They should allocate money to hire a trainer or get involved at getting to the gym. It is a non-negotiable. If you care about aging well, for example, if you rely just on nutrition, it is very difficult to, without movement, it doesn't have to be crazy. I worked on some of these early studies, and these early studies, if someone was just walking 5 days a week and 2 days a week of strength training, that's actually enough to maintain the tissue that they have. But I wouldn't want them to ever be like my patient that, or the study participant that, again, just did cardiovascular. You can't replace it. It just doesn't work. You have to train. You also don't have to train heavy to get results.
What is the optimal schedule and optimal training plan to support muscle mass?
Ideally, it would be, now I'll say you could start with 2 days a week, but let's say you go to 3 days a week. I do 3 days a week, full body. There's various ways that people could decide on how to train. Again, the first thing that you have to recognize is where someone's starting. So the question becomes, where is someone starting? Are they completely untrained? If they're totally untrained, they're going to get the biggest impact. If you want to go for hypertrophy, basically you want to think about 10 to 20 working sets a week, right? So 5 working sets per muscle group is sufficient for maintenance.
Per week.
So if you just want to maintain what you have, 5 working sets per muscle group is totally fine. You could do it across 2 days to 3 days a week. Super easy. And then you let, depending on how hard you're working, a day in between.
For rest?
Yeah. So you could do, again, depends on how you're doing it. So I typically recommend someone who's new doing full body. Typically, they're not lifting to a capacity where they have to do legs one day, then upper body, and then switch it out. I think that you could do full body 3 days a week.
I've also heard that you get more metabolic bang for your buck if you do full body workout. I don't know. I've heard you have to shunt the blood from the big muscles of the leg and then up to the smaller muscles in the upper body and back down. And it just requires a little bit more metabolic support that way.
That's a really good question. I should write that down. I'm not sure. I'll take a note.
Okay.
I think that it depends on, I think that, for example, if someone was going to sprint, that probably takes a lot more energy. If someone is going to lift a bigger muscle group like legs, then that would probably take more energy. I think it's just about the overall volume that's most important.
What about cardio? Do you put any cardio into your ideal workout schedule?
1 day a week of high intensity interval training is valuable. It doesn't have to be long, slow, steady state. So
3 times a week, lifting weights, 1 time a week cardio. If someone says they just have 30 minutes to go to the gym, I had a client ask me this actually yesterday. She said, I only have 30 minutes to go into the gym and I usually get on the elliptical machine. What would you advise that client? And she specifically is losing weight.
That is not going to support her body composition. She'll lose weight, but she's going to be a smaller version of what she already looks like. Here's what I would say that she needs to do. She has 30 minutes, so that's going to be very minimal rest between sets. She gets in there and she pushes to failure or a perceived failure. I would have her, if she's a new lifter, I would have her use the machines.
Yeah.
I would have her circuit through the machines. I think that's a great question.
Very little rest.
Very little rest. Try to get as much volume as you can.
When you lift, how long are you lifting for?
45 minutes.
And do you do HIIT each week too?
I have just transitioned things over. So I just found out that I have hip dysplasia. which is
Oh.
interesting. So I have dysplastic hips. I have an anatomical abnormality. Right now, we are reverting back to very basic fundamental movements.
Hmm.
But what I would normally do is 3 days a week of full body, and I would have hit in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah. And then I'm starting to add in more cardiovascular activity, 20 minutes a day.
Do you think it varies according to gender? Like, should men be doing something different than us
No,
ladies, or is the
great
same?
question. No.
How does strength training influence metabolic health beyond just muscle growth?
Metabolic health, skeletal muscle is beyond, did you say beyond metabolic health?
Yeah.
Well, this is wonderful. Skeletal muscle has an inter-organ crosstalk. If you have low skeletal muscle mass, you probably have low bone density. There's the metabolic component. Also,
Mm-hmm.
skeletal muscle mass is your amino acid reserve. We've all seen our parents get thinner and smaller. We've all seen people, if they get sick, they seem to lose muscle. If
Mm-hmm.
they, have an injury or cancer, skeletal muscle protects you. Your survivability is based on the health and quality of your skeletal muscle. It's an endocrine organ. We talked about this, that when you contract it, it interfaces with all organs in the body, affects the brain, the bone, the pancreas, the liver, you name it. In fact, we don't even know everything that it does. And then, of course, your metabolic sync, and then mobility and strength. And what's so unusual about muscle is that there's nothing in medicine that we can say that supports our overall survival more than skeletal muscle.
Hmm.
It's fascinating. And my goal, Ashley, is how do we shift the conversation from being fat focused to really being muscle centric? How
Mm-hmm.
do we really make people understand that while they have an option, whether to work out or train or not, for example, your client that had 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
she had longer than 30 minutes. She just had to prioritize it differently.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about that too.
Yeah. And, we just have to recognize that it's so critical. And there's nothing more important than that.
How does it work to support chronic disease prevention?
That's another amazing question. Skeletal muscle in support of chronic disease prevention really helps with healthy metabolism. When we think about low levels of inflammation, if you had unhealthy skeletal muscle, and what does unhealthy skeletal muscle look like? Unhealthy skeletal muscle looks like a marbled steak. It
Mm-hmm.
makes up roughly 40% of your body weight. Can you imagine if your tissue was unhealthy? Then that's what you would be looking at.
Mm-hmm. So just the largest organ in the body being unhealthy infiltrates every other
Terrible,
aspect of our health.
terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And the top two things we can do is eat adequate protein from quality sources
yes,
and overload the muscle.
that's right.
So,
And then could you do the other things like sleep and everything else? Yes,
mhm.
but listen, if I were to say what are the two biggest things, that would be amazing. I'd be happy with that. And then the third biggest thing is know where you fail. This is great if we're having an amazing conversation, Ashley, about what someone should do. And
Mhm.
we're saying, if you want to live well and you want to survive and you want to be resilient and durable and gritty and be able to pick up your toddlers or pick up your grandkids and not be in assisted living, then you have to have
Mhm.
skeletal muscle. The other thing, and that's not enough for people. If I say that, still 50% of Americans don't even work out. But if I tell you that, please understand your habits now, there is going to be a cost of doing business based on those decisions 5 years from now, 10 years
Mhm.
from now. It's not going to get easier. The best time to start is now. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time to start is now.
Mhm.
You have to know where you fail. You have to understand that there's predictable failures. People will always try to talk themselves out of it.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. People decide that they don't know how to do it, and that they on Monday morning said that they're going to get ready to train, and then they talk themselves out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go based on how you feel. It's never going to work. Not only can you not go based on how you feel, but you have to understand that you're not going to feel like doing it.
Yeah, it's never going to feel right.
Do you know that I try to talk myself out of working out every morning?
Do you?
Yeah,
But I see you on Instagram in there working out all the time
every
and working
morning.
out hard.
Every morning. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I'm too tired. I think that, maybe I'll just work out this afternoon. Every single morning, I try to talk myself out of it.
And then how do you overcome?
I fully know I'm going to try to talk myself out of it.
Oh, so you're prepared.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you've made it a non-negotiable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of the standard of how I operate. It's just a standard that I set for myself. I couldn't imagine not doing it.
Well, we talked about you being incredibly busy. Can you share how you take it as a priority? I mean, do you schedule it into your Google Calendar? Sometimes I see your daughter in there with you. If you could share, because there's so many people listening to this who are really busy and, like you said, talk themselves out of doing what they know they should, what helps them live in alignment with their goals, but they still talk themselves out of it. So I think it would be helpful to share with them strategies on how you have created it to be a habit, just an identity, and how you take it as a priority despite what comes your way.
Yes, I would say that I'm busy, but I don't know if I'm any busier than anybody else. We all live very busy lives, and I'm no exception. I'm nothing special, and I'm no different. Physical movement is a priority, and it happens whether the kids are around or not, because I know that my example, how I show up and what I do, is going to be how they live. And quite frankly, I don't want to. Having weight challenges dominates people's thinking. It dominates their self-confidence, their self-esteem. It makes their ability to go through life and show up as the best version of themselves very difficult. I don't want my kids to struggle with that because they have to learn new habits as they get older. I want them to have this habit and this way of being instilled in them. I don't want them to have to, I'm sure you see a lot of your patients struggle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what if we could avoid that whole struggle?
It'd be huge. Mm-hmm. It'd change every aspect of their lives and those they love.
Exactly. So
then for you just schedule it and make it a non-negotiable. Even when you don't feel like it, you're there. Even when you have an
I never
injury.
feel like it. I don't care. But here's the thing, Ashley, I've gotten to the point where I don't even have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mental friction.
That's also, I believe, what we need to do around our diet, where it's just who we are and how we live and what we choose to eat. And once it becomes that habitual, we know we've created this new identity within ourselves.
I love that.
Will you share what you eat in a day with us?
Yeah. Today was a kind of an off day for me. I had a protein shake in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a rise. I'm like obsessed with this new bar. Gosh, I should even look to see what's in it before I tell you about it. But it's called, I'm just obsessed with this new protein bar. It's so good. It's not.
What makes it good?
Oh my! It just tastes amazing. Let me see what it is. Anyway, I had a protein bar. I'll have. See, what time is it? 2. Today's an off day for me. I'll have, when we're done with this, I'll have some lean steak and some vegetables, probably some rice, and then I'll have that meal again. Here's what it's called. It's called Kize, Kize. These are the best tasting protein bars that I have. Oatmeal chocolate chip.
Yeah.
I don't even know what's in it.
I've not heard of it.
So it's peanut butter. So it's low quality protein. Oh, it has like no protein in it.
Oh, darn.
But I didn't eat it for a meal. I just had it as a snack. But it is amazing.
Does it matter when we eat the protein?
No.
No.
If you are healthy and active, it doesn't. If you are trying to lose weight, if you are under eating protein, then after training is where I would put it. But
Okay.
no, typically does not matter.
What about for folks who intermittent fast? You probably are going to be heard on this podcast, YouTube video by people who like to fast or maybe OMAD, one meal a day. How do these folks get in adequate protein and what should they look out for?
So I don't recommend one meal a day. I think that that's a mistake. Your first and your last meal are going to be most important to set you up for metabolic success because it'll help with satiation. That first meal should have between 30 and 50 grams of protein.
Same with the last one, right?
Yeah.
And then you take the
One meal a
remaining.
day is not optimal
Why?
because you're only stimulating muscle once a day. There's more opportunity the more you stimulate it. And why would you do that to yourself? You know?
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the biggest barriers to creating lasting lifestyle change in people with unhealthy eating habits? And I'd love for you to share some strategies on how you suggest folks to overcome.
What are the biggest barriers? Not understanding, thinking that the future is always out there. There's this idea that I'll change when I have to, or I can't get better. There's all these kind of fast forward. It's not in the immediate because you don't feel unhealthy muscle until, of
That's
course, you
true.
fall and break your hip or can't get up.
Mm-hmm.
So the future, bad decisions that are comfortable are never going to result in anything meaningful, and it's going to catch up. And so the biggest barrier is this failure to understand. Have you seen It's a Beautiful Life?
Yes, I have.
It's a Beautiful Life, for you guys who have not watched it. We watch it once a year. It's amazing. And basically, it fast forwards to what your life could have been. And you have to actually put yourself in that position.
Mm-hmm.
I run 3 businesses. I'm a mom of 2 very little children, and my husband works 120 hours a week. There are many days that I feel like, you know what, I'm going to not do this, or maybe I'll do this to a lower quality. And then I think about that movie, It's a Beautiful Life. And if I were to fast forward that moment decision, because that moment decision becomes easier to replicate, you become very good at doing the same thing over and over again. I don't want to look back and go, I was really distracted. I didn't focus. And now I'm with my kids, but I'm thinking about other things.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't want to train. I'll just do that tomorrow. And then that decision for tomorrow becomes easier to put off again. There's all these little things that one puts off or feels as if it's in the future. And so you have to pull that back. So that's number one, is really fast forwarding your thinking. And it's not positive. It hurts. I'll give you an example. There was a period of time in my life when I was younger, I cared so much about what people thought that I would get really upset if I was excluded, or if I, wasn't invited to this party. And it consumed so much of my thinking that instead of thinking about what college I was going to or how I could contribute to society, could you imagine if I kept that habit and that way of being? I wouldn't accomplish anything.
Yeah, you'd be limited.
I'd be really limited. And so I think that the world is hard enough that I don't want to impose my own limits.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more thing. Worthiness. People will only ever be as healthy as they feel worthy of being. And you have to recognize if you truly feel worthy of having the body and the life that you want. You see those people that win the lottery and then they lose it all. Yeah. Or you see that person that has a good relationship and then sabotages it. You'll only ever go as high as you feel worthy of going. And
a lot of people lack worthiness, though. How can you help them get that level up?
I don't know. I don't have that answer because I think it comes from internal, you know?
Mhm. So we briefly touched on the pillars associated with optimizing muscle mass. What
Yeah.
are the others that we haven't talked about yet?
For overall health, or the other pillar is going to surprise you, and maybe not because you're Ashley, Dr. Ashley, but it's having meaning in your life and doing
Mm-hmm.
something that drives meaning, that's not self-focused.
Mm-hmm.
There's the physical aspect of muscle and health, and then there is the meaningful aspect of being a human. You know, I have a private concierge medical practice where I take care of the most successful people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to worry about money. They don't have to worry about fame, and they don't have to worry about power. Many of them will become depressed if they don't focus on meaning. When you focus on meaning, it becomes easy to work out. When you focus on the meaning, it becomes easy to eat right because it becomes important to be able to be of service.
Mm-hmm.
And the way in which someone is of service for any length of time is really because they're taking care of their health, and that's how they can do it. You will only go as high as your health. You know, if you're not feeling well, you can't be a successful business owner.
That's right.
If you're not feeling well, you can't be a successful mom or wife. But if the meaning is your community and the meaning is your family and your relationships, then everything else becomes easier,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it's servant leadership.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I love that. Will you share with us a little bit about your book?
Forever Strong.
That's right.
This book is for anybody who's interested in health and wellness. You don't have to know anything about nutrition to be able to read it. And it really reframes the entire conversation, tells you exactly what to do, how to eat, how to train, how to think, so that you can become very forever strong.
Mm-hmm. And it's on Amazon, all bookstores.
Yep.
Translated into how many languages?
18.
Wow. It's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Where else can people find you and learn more?
I have a great podcast called the Dr. Gabrielle Lyon Show. I also have a YouTube channel. I also have a free newsletter. We provide a ton of content. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, my website, at drgabriellelyon.com. We're running a boot camp right now. I don't know when this episode airs, but it's available for one more week. And we also have a community.
You have 6-week programs. I think I saw a 6-week program happening right now. Is that what the boot camp is?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lyon, for coming on. I appreciate all of your great knowledge and insights. And again, appreciate your time so much.
Oh, well, I appreciate the friendship and your support. It means the world. So thank you.
Wow, you guys, I hope that you got so much value, so much great information from Dr. Lyon. She is truly an expert when it comes to muscle mass and protein and optimal health. So I hope you loved that as much as I loved recording it. So remember, if you are listening to this on a podcast platform, please leave a review. If you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe so we can positively impact more people, and drop your comments below, any questions that you have for me on the content that Dr. Lyon delivered today. I'm hoping to help you and serve you through the comments as much as I can. So remember, you've got to step up to make the change. Lead with your heart, train your mind, and do not negotiate with your body. See you next time.